Well, they're helping him out and they can't even see it. Let's begin. Now, of course, ever since Nigel Farage's panorama interview the other day, the establishment spin machine has been trying to paint him as the devil with what he was saying. And for those of you who haven't heard, he was basically saying that the EU and NATO's expansion kind of provoked or gave Putin the excuse that he needed to convince his people to start this terrible war which is going on at the moment. However, whilst that may be the excuse that he thought he needed, that doesn't justify it, and Nigel never actually said it did. So for the establishment to come out there and blame him for basically accusing us, I think is quite far-fetched, and if anything is going to bite them in the bum. Admittedly, Nigel could have phrased it slightly differently, because Nick Robinson, who was hosting the programme, who by the way kind of looks a lot worse for wear than he used to, and sounds like he needs to swallow a pack of tunes to improve that lovely singing voice of his. However, as you probably know, he asked Nigel to explain something that he said which was obviously taken out of context, saying that the West provoked the war. But as I said, he was talking about the EU expansion and of course NATO, which, as far as I'm aware, we don't really have much control over at all. Especially with the EU, let's face it, they kind of like to tell us what to do. And of course, all the establishment and parties out there thought, yes, this is our chance to really put the boot in, with some people claiming that Farage is the modern day Neville Chamberlain. And then James Cleverly, who, let's face it, I don't think that really is a good acronym for him, but he describes him as toxic and he'll never be allowed to enter the Conservative Party. Although, to be honest with you, James, I think, if anything, the Conservative Party is basically done with, because they're not really Conservative at all, are they? But why is it going to backfire on them? Well, because, as the saying goes, there is no such thing as bad press, because, whilst admittedly a load of people have heard of Nigel Farage, and of course the Reform Party, some people who are not politically minded might have heard about Nigel Farage but might not have heard about the Reform Party, and then when they delve into the article and see what a bad man he is, as the papers are putting out there, or certain people are putting out there, should I say, these people might then have a look at the Reform Party and think, well, actually, I do agree with the Reform policies on this. I do agree with the Reform policies on that. Actually, the Reform Party seems to be quite a good party. But doesn't it surely show that the establishment is actually worried about Nigel Farage? Because they're not letting this go, are they? And of course, admittedly, as I said, he could have phrased it slightly differently and said the EU and NATO rather than the West. That is, of course, what he meant, and he did actually clarify that on the Panorama interview, although of course the lefty establishment out there don't really want you to know that, so if they are going to mention it, they're going to mention it quite far down the articles, kind of like what they said, that he doesn't actually agree or like with what Putin is doing. And I, of course, personally do not agree with Putin and think he's a massive bellend and the war needs to be stopped straight away.